संसारदावा नलिलीडलोका त्रणाय कारुण्यगणगणात्तम् प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणनवास्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाध्यान् मनसोरसेना रोमाञ्चकम्पाश्रितरङ्गबाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमार्जनादो युक्तश्च भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसाद स्वादन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घम् कृत्यैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम् प्रतिक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनुरतिकेलिसीधय यायलिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्षात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव शाद्भिः किन्तु प्रभुर्यः प्रियैव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्स्तु वंस्तस्य यशस्विसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् 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 नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिसतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद नित्यानंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Radhe Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai. Premi Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Pradipumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Shivas Thakur, Shirabab Mahosava Ki Jai, Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to assembled devotees, all glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glory to Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. हिरण्यकाशिपूर्वक्षः हिरण्यकाशिपूर्वक्षः शीलदाङ्कानखालाये शीलदाङ्कानखालाये इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह यतो यामि ततो बहिर्नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह बहिर्नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह नरसिंहमादिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरेण काम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तानुभृङ्गा केशवधीरता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे करकमलवरे अद्भुत ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा ऋषभधीरता नररूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवधीरता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधीरता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद
नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिपदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः महारानी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो यही अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो यही अभिलाषी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः ये तो मारा शरणलोय तरा वांच पूर्ण होय मारा कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वाश नयने हरिबो सदा युगल रूपरासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यही निवेदन द्वारा सखीरनु गाता कोरो सेवाधिकारो दिए कोरो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दासे को ये ना मोरा हो श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमी सदा ये न बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणक्षन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणक्षन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणक्षन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. तुलसीदेव महारानी की जय. श्री वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवच च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रजदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. श्री वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवच च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रजदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. श्री वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवच च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रजदेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वृंदेदेव तुलसीदेव महारानी की जय.
Oh Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again. My desire in the service is Radha and Krishna. Wherever take shelter, you have reached this field. Please have mercy upon him and make him a resident in Dhavana. My desire is also grant me residence in precious groves of Shiva and Dhavana town. Thus within my vision I shall behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow Karho Danso's Virgin. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees of dedicated life for propagating holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods, Lord Shiva, Brahma, to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Veda literature or literature pursuing the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualist activities, offering the Veda the fruity activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also a defense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 fences in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as high trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shri Yakairava Chantrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bhakutani Cha Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadesi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Tisham Yahajaninanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarin Kavitam Jagadishakamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Pavata Bhaktirahaitu Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Pavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaduri Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Garadashurudaraya Vadanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Mapurkata Tavanama Gane Bhavishyati Yugayitam Nimeshena Chakshusha Pravisayitam Shunyayitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashlishyava Padaratam Pidastumam Adarsanam Armahato Karutuva Yata Tatava Vidatu Lampato Matpananatas Tusaeva Naparaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam ki jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all that dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings. Thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord in the stormy street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord,
I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion to service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen to this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-Salakaya Chakshurunam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namini Bhartamste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shivarshavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhuryo Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Namo Gaur Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumishwam Nirdesta Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavitaram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Pangor Mahamanda Matergati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Dvindaranya Kalpajumadaha Shimad Nagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastari Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venusmane Gopir Gopinata Shriyeshtana Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakarasat Masukalpa Vriksha Lakshaviteshu Surabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Konantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Barharvatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandakala Savanamari Vamsi Ranam Gadam Anayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tripangaladitam Yata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Anganyasya Sakalindriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Manantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Panchastu Koti Shatavastra Sampragamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Munipurgavanam Sopyastiyat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Saurataitum Jagadanta Kotim Yachaktirasti Jagadanta Chayayadanta Antantarasa Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yabhava Bhavita Diyo Manujastateva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yanabusa Suktayam Eva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Sapatipavitapi Stavir Eva Nijarupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nimisata Kilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hridesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalanyamena Tishtanan Avataram Akaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhava Paramapumam Yo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Shri Brahmasmita Ki Jai. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shamsundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, and is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I worship Govinda. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Shakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna, and the different avatars in the world, in the form of Rama and the Shinga, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmad Yasya Yata Niviyad Itaratas Chartesu Avigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Damna Smena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of material nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in a transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2. Dharma Pojita Kaitravocha Paramo Nirmatsanam Sitam Vedyam Vastavam Atravastu Sivadam Tapo Chayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimvapare Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridya Avarudyate Cha Kriti Vihisa Susubhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam pipata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of C. Sukadeva Goswami, therefore this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Today we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 10, verse number 8. Padam kosham tadavishya Bhagavat karma chodita Ekam vyabang kasid uruda Trida bhavyam dvisaptada. Padam kosam, the whorl of the lotus. Tada, then. Avishya, entering into. Bhagavat, by the Supreme Personality Godhead. Karma, in activities. Chodita, being encouraged. Being encouraged by. Ekam, one. Vyabhanksit, divided into. Uruda, great division. Trida, three divisions. Bhavyam, capable of further creation. Dvisaptada, 14 divisions. Translation. Thus engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Brahma entered into the whorl of the lotus, and as it spread all over the universe, he divided it into 3 divisions of worlds, and later into 14 divisions. So this is giving deeper understanding of how Brahma is a secondary, let's say, assistant of Krishna for the creation of the material world. When it says the whorl, not the world, but the whorl, W-H-O-R-L of the lotus, a whorl is referring to, it can refer to several things, but in this case, it's referring to concentric circles. It's just like you take a rock and you throw it into a pond, and it lands, and all of a sudden, these circles appear. And one after another get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's what he's referring to here when it says the whorl of the lotus. The whorl refers usually to concentric circles that are getting bigger and bigger. And as it spread all over the universe, he divided it into 3 divisions of worlds, W-O-R-L-D-S. Now, there's the difference in whorl, W-H-O-R-L, and worlds, and later into 14 divisions. Text number 9. Itavan jivalokasya samsta veda samarita dharmasya hi animitasya vipaka parameshtyado ayaso Etavan, up to this, Jivalokasya, of the planets inhabited by the living entities. samsta, beta, different situations of habitation. Samarita, performed completely. Dharmasya, of religion. He, certainly. Animitasya, of causelessness. Vipaka, mature stage. Parameshti, the highest personality in the universe. Aso, that. Lord Brahma is the most exalted personality in the universe because of his causeless devotional service unto the Lord in mature transcendental knowledge. So when it says causeless, it means Brahma has no personal agenda. He's performing this service out of love and devotion for the Lord. So he has no self-interest for his own sense gratification. His only preoccupation is to please the Lord. So then it says causeless. It's not that his cause is he wants to be elected an official in the government, or he wants to be a rich man, or he wants to be a famous person, or he wants this, or he wants that. He simply wants to please the Lord, and with his love and devotion. So it's causeless. There's no personal agenda. Lord Brahma is the most exalted personality in the universe because of his causeless devotional service unto the Lord in mature transcendental knowledge. He therefore created all the 14 planetary divisions for inhabitation by the different types of living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all the qualities of the living entities. The conditioned souls in the material world reflect only part of those qualities, and therefore they are sometimes called pratibimbas. These pratibimba living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, have inherited different proportions of his original qualities, and in terms of their inheritance of these qualities, they appear as different species of life, and are accommodated in different planets, according to the plan of Brahma. Brahma is the creator of the three worlds, namely the lower planets called Patala Lokas, the middle planets called the Bur Lokas, and the upper planets called the Swara Lokas. Still higher planets, such as Mahaloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka, and Brahmaloka, do not dissolve in the devastating water. This is because of the causeless devotional service rendered unto the Lord by their inhabitants, whose existence continues up to the end of Dviparadra time, when they are generally liberated from the chain of birth and death in the material world. Wow, what an amazing description here Prabhupada gives. Okay, so Krishna is the source of everything. So he is what you would call the reservoir of all the qualities of the living entities. And we can only reflect a part of those qualities. We never have it in full. And therefore, we are called pratibimbas. We are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And we've inherited different proportions of his original qualities. And in terms of their inheritance of these qualities, they appear as different species of life and are accommodated in different planets according to the plan of Brahma. So Brahma's got a big responsibility. He's got to organize all these things. But basically, he's not the primary creator, he's the secondary creator, as we learned in Canto 3, Chapter 10, verse number 7. We're in verse number 9 now. So, but it's still, he's referred to as the secondary creator, but actually Krishna is the primary creator, and he creates the original seeds of things, and then Brahma just disseminates them, and then they fructify. Okay, so it says here, Brahma is the most exalted personality in the universe because of his causeless devotional service unto the Lord in mature transcendental knowledge. So what is he talking about when it says mature transcendental knowledge? Well, that means that Brahma knows who Krishna is. He's not a rural god that came to India during the Aryan invasion of India. This is nonsense theory of Max, what was his name? Anyway, of the Christian missionaries who were trying to spread Krishna consciousness in India. And they came up with this false theory of the Aryan invasion of India, and that Krishna was some kind of a rural god that sort of came into North India and somehow or other became very prominent. So we see that the Christians tried to completely, what you would say, control the narration of who God is. They tried to you would say, they tried to reinvent Krishna and make him some kind of obscure personality that somehow or other, by luck or by some other means, became prominent in North India. So this is how nasty people are, and this is how many Indians have been taught for at least 4 or 5 generations, this type of false narrative to basically make Krishna subordinate to, first of all, the Christian timeline, which says the world began only 5,000 years ago, and then also make him appear as if some kind of a lucky guy who was actually an obscure god that came with the Aryan invasion of North India and became prominent. Okay, so therefore it says, Lord Brahma is the most exalted personality in the universe because of his causeless devotional service unto the Lord in mature transcendental knowledge. He therefore created all the 14 planetary divisions for the inhabitation by the different types of living entities. So you have some planets that are in the inhabited by devas. You have planets, the middle planets like this Earth, inhabited by people who are mostly in lust and ignorance, and some little bit of goodness. On the higher planets, everyone is more or less in the mode of goodness. And then you have the lower planets where people are overwhelmed with ignorance. And then you have even higher planets than the Devalokas, where you have Mahaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, and Brahmaloka, where there is causeless devotional service rendered unto the Lord by the inhabitants. So this gives us a general idea of the cosmology of the material universe. And you see, unless we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's possible that we could be misled by all the false narratives created by the Christian missionaries who wanted to basically destroy Vedic culture. They're still trying to do that. And many people get duped by it or tricked by it, and they begin to have mundane conception of who Krishna is. But you see how by going verse by verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're hearing more and more information of how Krishna is the Supreme Personality, Godhead, completely transcendental to the material world, but yet is the creator of the material world. So we're going to hear this in much more detail, because this is explained very deeply in the Bhagavad Gita. And we see now the correspondence between Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we go to the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and go to the we go to the 9th chapter, 7th verse. We're going to 7, 8, 9, 10. O son of Kunti, this is the 7th verse of the 9th chapter. At the end of the millennium, that means at the end of the day of Brahma, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Okay, no, so that's not day of Brahma, that's the life of Brahma. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material cosmic manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of the personality of Godhead. At the end of the millennium means at the death of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years, and his one day is calculated as 4,300,000,000,000 of our earthly years. That's his one day. And then he has his night, and his night is of the same duration. So that would be 8,600,000 years. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, and his year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahu Shyam, although I am one, I shall become many. This is the Vedic aphorism of the Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.3. He expands himself in this material energy, and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes place. So, we have to learn a few things here. One day of Brahma is called a kalpa, and the night of Brahma is equal to the same thing. So a kalpa is 4,300,000,000 years. That's one day of Brahma, in which there are 1,000 cycles of 4 ages. Okay. Then kalpa is one day of Brahma, or 12 hours, and night is the same duration, and day and night equal 8,600,000,000 years. And then there are 30 days in 1 month, and then, so you have to multiply 30 times 8,600,000 years. And then there are 12 months in 1 year. You have to multiply by 12. And Brahma lives 100 years. You have to multiply by 100. So the total life of Brahma is 311,040,000,000,000 years. This is unimaginable. We can't even fathom what that expanse of time is, but it's a fact, and it just shows how insignificant we are, but yet we're carrying God in our hearts as Paramatma. So we're not insignificant. If we didn't have the presence of Paramatma in our heart, we would be completely insignificant. We would have no real value. But because the Lord is in our heart, we have tremendous value, because we have a relationship with the Supreme, and an unbreakable relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, we're not forced to surrender to the Lord. It's voluntary. Therefore, there's only 2 decisions we have to make in life. Either we accept Krishna and surrender to him, or we reject Krishna and avoid him. we're still eternal even if we reject Krishna. But we fall into a very, very difficult situation. Because we're eternal, we're never going to die. We will always have some kind of body. And it means that we'll be suffering unnecessarily because of that obstinacy to not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and follow his instructions. So you see, both ways we're eternal. We can never be actually eliminated or rubbed out or non-existent. So it makes sense to surrender to the Lord because that's where we came from. We were all originally with the Lord in Vaikuntha or Goloka. Somehow or other we fell down. Therefore we have a right to go back. This is the facts of life. These are the facts of life. The real facts. If we understand these things, then there's hope for us. Each one of us can attain the highest perfection of life, like Brahma, and go back to Godhead. Okay, so this is the 9th chapter, 7th verse. See, everything is in the Bhagavad Gita, and then it's expanded even more in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the next verse, 9:8, says, "The whole cosmic order is under me, under my will. It is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end." So this creation and destruction is going on all the time. You can see it now. Right now in Seattle, you can see that you have so many buildings that are being built, and before they're built, they tear down the building that was there before. So there's building and breaking, building and breaking, building and breaking all over the place, all over the United States, all over the world, right? And it's happening in the same way all over the universe. It's building and breaking, building and breaking. However, you cannot break the soul. And therefore, rather than fall into the trap of building and breaking, we should really focus on serving Krishna and becoming free of this building and breaking culture. You might say, well, you're building a temple, you're doing this. Yeah, we build a temple. Why? Because we want to worship Krishna. But we don't build sports stadiums. We don't build gigantic cinemas. We don't build these gigantic skyscrapers where people go every day and just talk nonsense and try to make a lot of money. We're concerned with glorifying Lord Krishna. That's why we have classes every day. That's why we have Sankirtan. That's why we have festivals. Somehow or other, we're trying to glorify the Lord and help other people understand Him. And we saw this just like, at the festival that we had. Although we were not openly saying this is Hare Krishna's, people figured it out in a more gentle, subtle way. And they were happy. There's a difference between being in the face of people and the other is remaining very humble and meek and letting people discover who you are. So that's a discovery. Discovery is something much more exciting than in the face of someone. Most people don't understand this. They think they need to be in the face of everyone. But a person who is, let's say, self-controlled is not going to be very pushy. They're going to be very humble and gentle. And when people realize that you have that nature of humility, gentleness, and compassion, and not being judgmental, I mean, obviously, we don't accept meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication. People say, oh, that's very judgmental, right? But no, those are self-destructive habits. So it's not being judgmental, it's just being practical. Why would I want to put smoke in my lungs? Why would I want to eat a dead body? Why would I want to gamble money and lose it? And it's so hard to make money. And why would I want to engage in illicit sex? All these things are troublesome and not very constructive for a spiritual life. Okay, so then it says, this material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahatattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes, and into each universe the Lord again enters as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. So, this is Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 8th verse, and it's explaining how the creation takes place of the material world, and how it's maintained, and how eventually it will be destroyed or dissolved. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into the material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. So that's, here Prabhupada is making it clear, Darwin's theory that everything evolved gradually over millions of years is bogus. It's nonsense. It's not a fact. Everything was created immediately with the transcendental potency of the Lord. And people existed before that creation. And they're simply assume again bodies based on their karma, and they continue their quest for either wasting their life in sense gratification or taking advantage of the opportunity of having a human birth and understanding their relationship with Krishna, engaging in devotional service, and going back to Godhead. The real purpose of creation is a chance for the living entities to go back to Godhead once they come to the human form of life. And then it says, the activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. In other words, all the species are created right away, right in the beginning of the next material creation. And then they assume positions based on their previous karma in the different bodies, and there are 8,400,000 different bodies. The different species of life were created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds. Everything is simultaneously created because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word of Assam that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by his or Krishna's will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after creating such different species of life, he has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. This is the gospel truth. What does that mean exactly? That means that Krishna remains neutral. In other words, why? Because every one of us has free will, limited free will. Either we choose to follow Krishna's instructions or we choose to ignore them. So what do we do in this temple? We're trying to convince people to follow Krishna's instructions. That way, you have a chance to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. If we very happy, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, why should I worry about chanting and waking up early and bathing and coming to the class, the temple, coming to the class and associating with devotees and getting involved in this and that? I'll just take it very easy, eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and not worry about anything. Well, yeah, there's plenty to worry about. There's disease, there's old age, and death. How can you say you're not going to be worried? So we see how people rationalize their self-destruction. And it's amazing, it's unbelievable how this is happening, even though the information is there to save people from that self-destructive life. So here, the next verse says, O Dhananjaya, O Arjuna, all this work done, all this work done cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So although Krishna is in control of everything, he's not involved in what's happening. He simply sets up the stage, and then people assume their bodies according to their previous karma, and then they start acting it out. So as long as they're in the animal forms, they're completely controlled. When they come to the human form, they have limited free will. And if they make the right decisions, they can go back to Godhead. If they keep making the wrong decisions, they go back down into the animal kingdom. So he says, material activities are being carried out by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged. Someone is being put into jail. Someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth. But still, the judge is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34, it is stated, Vaisamya nirgrinye na. He is not situated in the dualities of the material world. He is transcendental to these dualities. And that's why he can be neutral. If you have an agenda, then you cannot be neutral. He has to be neutral in order to give everyone a free chance to decide whether they want to surrender to him or not. Nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. Okay, so we come up to this point. The main explanation is going to be tomorrow on verse 9th chapter, 10th verse. You should very carefully read that verse. It's a homework, and try and understand what it's saying. It's very profound because it explains how Krishna is directing everything without being influenced by anything. And like, none of us can really do that, because whenever we do something, we get oftentimes attached to the result. We want it to be successful or like that. But in the case of Krishna, he is not involved in the point where he takes sides. He's neutral. But yet, on top of all that, he is very, let's say, merciful to his devotees. So here we see, on one hand, it's saying he's neutral. On the other hand, it's going to say that he has this special, let's say, consideration for devotees. So we will discuss that tomorrow. Are there any questions about this? See, what we just read is very important because it debunks Darwinism completely. And we see how Darwinism is being defended by the scientists, because if Darwinism is debunked, they lose all their funding, and they lose all, let's say, authority, because they've been teaching this Darwinism for like almost 200 years, and convincing people that this is the way creation took place. Whereas the real explanation is here in Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter. See? So if we understand how the creation actually took place, then we won't be cheated by Darwin's theory, which is completely false and completely rejects the existence of God. Darwin is the most dangerous of all the three people who influenced the world: Darwin, Marx, and Freud. Marx and Freud are both more or less passé. They're not being considered. I mean, Freud a little bit is being considered. Marx lost. Communism has failed. But Darwin is still going really strong. And there's going to be a big fight now. But once Darwinism is destroyed, then Krishna consciousness becomes prominent. Why? Because Krishna consciousness has the answers of how the world was created, and how it's being maintained, and how it's going to be destroyed, and what is the real purpose of human life. All those things are explained here in the Bhagavad Gita. And we see, as long as Darwinism has any influence on people, they're not going to become Krishna conscious. This is a big battle. This is bigger than the Ukraine and Russia. This is bigger than World War II. This is bigger than, World War I. This is the main battle for the heart of people. And unless we have a strong presence presenting this knowledge, there's no other hope. Where else are they going to get this knowledge? They're not going to get it in schools. The schools are completely sold out to Darwinism. So now, once you put your finger on the fault, now you can see how to correct it. But you have to be able to put your finger on what the real fault is, what the real evil is, what the real, let's say, the real thing that is misleading the people, as definitely Darwinism. Okay, so we'll discuss this much more in depth tomorrow. Are there any questions?
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, Krishna is with us as Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu.
That's right. Kshirodaka Vishnu, yes.
Vishnu. But here, down in the purport, Prabhupada writes, he has no connection with them. After creating different species of life, he has no connection with them.
That's Krishna in his original form.
Okay.
The Purusha avatars are involved in the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material creation. Mm-hmm. They are also transcendental because they're expansions of Krishna. Okay. But Krishna himself, in his original form, is not involved.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now the others are involved, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, but they're not affected by the involvement.
Oh,
Okay?
okay, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Okay. We'll end right there. Thank you very much. Now you know who the most evil of the evil is, Darwinism. And we have all the information now how to defeat it. The question is, are we going to do that or not? And Prabhupada wanted us to completely defeat this Darwinism. Then they have no other theory. They have nothing to stand on. And then they're going to have mud in their face because for 200 years they've been misleading people with a false philosophy and a false narrative. Right. So they're going to put up a big fight. Of course. It's going to be fun to see this. Hare Krishna. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You see, most people are sleeping. They're not aware of what's going on and how they're being influenced. And just like yesterday when I discussed autism and the causes of it and how women can avoid having an autistic child. You see, these are very important questions because in the 1960s and 70s, only 2 to 4 kids in 10,000 would get autism. And today, it's 1 in 36 kids that gets autism. How did that happen? It's a colossal disaster. But they're not explaining how it happened. They say, well, it's because we have better diagnostic methods now. No, you don't go from 2 to 4 in 10,000 to 1 in 36 because of diagnostics. There's something going on, and I explained it, what was going on and what was causing this. Now, whether people accept it or not, that's another question, right? So you see, what we're discussing are very pertinent things to what's going on in society today. Right? Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Glory to Prabhupada ki jai. Anybody want to sing?
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satma.
Bandhu mui savadana mate.
Bandhu mui savadana mate.
Bandhu mui savadana mate.
Bandhu mui savadana mate.
Jahara prasade bai e bhavatoriya jai.
Janara prasade bai e bhavatoriya jai.
Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te.
Krishna prapti hoya hoy te.
Guru mukha padma vakya chitete koriya kya.
Guru mukha padma vaikya chitete koriya aikya.
Arana koriyo mane asha.
Arana koriya mane asa.
Arana koriyo mane asha.
Arana koriya mane asa.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Je prasade pure sarva asha.
Ye prasade pure sarva asa.
Je prasade pure sarva asha.
Ye prasade pure sarva asa.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
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 दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
प्रेमा भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते.
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 वेदे ज्ञाय जहारा चरितो.
वेदे ज्ञाय जनरा चरितो.
वेदे ज्ञाय जहारा चरितो.
बोलो वेदे ज्ञाय जनरा चरितो.
श्री गुरु करुणा
हरि बोल.
सिंधु राधा मजनारा बंधु.
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधना जनरा बंधु.
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु राधा मजनारा बंधु.
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधना जनरा बंधु.
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना.
बोलो लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना.
लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना.
बोलो लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना.
आहा प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पादा छाया.
आहा प्रभु कोर दया देह मोरे पद छाया.
आहा प्रभु कर दया देह मोरे पादा छाया.
बोलो आहा प्रभु कोर दया देह मोरे पद छाया.
एबे जाश जुशुक त्रिभुवाना.
एबे यास कुसुक त्रिभुवाना.
एबे दाश जुशुक त्रिभुवाना.
एबे यास कुसुक त्रिभुवाना.
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रीला प्रभुपादा.
जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada.
Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva, Jayo Gurudeva.
Gurudeva Jaya, Gurudeva Jaya, Gurudeva Jaya, Gurudeva.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol,
Hari Bol,
Hari Bol,
Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gora Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Pararajachasta, Tarasattva Shishi Shiman. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantanut Goti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaitika Radha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to some of the, all glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhi Srimati Bhakti Rasmata. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pacharini Devi Sesa Sanyavadi Praskaya. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing with his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya.